The done button in Lightroom Classic is done. It's gone. Adobe even mentioned it in a recent update, but before that they removed it from some other places. So if you're wondering what that button was, why it's gone, some alternatives, I'll share that. But more importantly, I want to share some tips and shortcuts on just using some of the tools inside of Lightroom that will negate that button being gone or there or whatever, because you never really needed it. And I think these will just help you speed up your workflow a little bit. So let's go ahead and jump in. And I think the first thing we should probably take a look at is where would we normally see the done button? Where was it? It was typically when you used any of the tools up here right under the histogram. So your cropping, your healing, your red eye, your masking tools. So if you were to go into the crop tool, you were to do some cropping, you would see a done button down here. If you were to go into the masking tools, do some masking, you would have seen a done button down in that bottom right corner of your photo. So what's happened is a couple of things. Number one, they added a new icon up here. So if you're using any of these tools and you want it to be done and you want to be back into your regular controls, you could just click the little adjustment slider icon in that top left there, and that would take you back there. And then don't forget, on a lot of those tools, there's a little close option there. And that's where, you know, I really have a hard time believing that the done button being gone is that big of a deal, because it was redundant. Close really made a lot more sense. If you were cropping, you were generally on the photo or you were over here. If you were using the healing brush, again, you were generally on the photo or over here. So you would just close, and people would always ask me what was the difference between close and done, and there was none. It was redundant. So I always found that button to be a lot more confusing than anything. You'd find it in a few other places, under some of your transformation controls. If you're using the white balance selector, you would see the done button as well. So you saw it in a couple of other places, but it is gone. I don't know why they got rid of it. It doesn't make, who cares? Just leave it there. It's not that big of a deal. But here's the thing to do that I would suggest, and this is where the tips come in, is I would say, number one, don't forget there is that close option over there. So you can always just use that. And your cursor is probably close to there. Number two, if you're using either of those options, you're doing things a little bit along the lines of the slow way, okay? And there were faster ways to do it. And this is where I think keyboard shortcuts could really come in handy. For example, the crop tool. I've never used close or done when I was done with the crop tool, because I guess just early on, I realized, or I found out, that the crop tool keyboard shortcut was the letter R. Okay, so if I just hit the letter R, that takes me into the crop tool. Now I can go in here and crop my photo, and then when I'm done, I just hit the letter R again, and it takes me out of the crop tool and back to whatever I was doing. Same thing with the healing brush, your masking tools, and the place that you can find all this, and this is what I'm going to point you to rather than just go through all of the keyboard shortcuts, is up in the tools option, because this is typically where you saw the done button. It's when you were using a tool. But you could see the crop tool has a keyboard shortcut. The healing tool has a keyboard shortcut. Red eye doesn't, and honestly, that's fine. And you can't add or change keyboard shortcuts, so just know that. But you had keyboard shortcuts there for those. The masking panel. Okay, you want to get to the masking panel, press Shift W. That'll open your masking panel. Once you do that, you want to get out of your masking panel, press Shift W again, and it's gone. And then a lot of times people would say, with the introduction of some of the new masking tools they added, they made it harder to get to the brush. Well, you still have your keyboard shortcuts for the brush, the gradient, the radial gradient. Those haven't changed ever. Okay, so if you're thinking, well, it's too many keystrokes or too many clicks to try to get to masking, all you gotta do is hit the letter K, and now you're automatically masking with a brush. It automatically opens the panel and takes you to the brush tool. So it really isn't any more clicks or anything like that. And even if it was only like one click. But I understand that some people had a workflow, and that did slow things down just a little bit. So the best thing you can do, and again, if I'm done masking, I go ahead and then I brush onto my photo. I just press Shift W and I'm out. Or press that little icon in the top left there, and that will take you back to all of your editing controls. Don't forget, all those keyboard shortcuts are going to be located up in the tools menu. So if there was a tool and you were used to using the done button there, I would just take this as a nudge in the right direction and some keyboard shortcuts that can just speed up your workflow. Also, if you hadn't seen the new big portrait update to Lightroom, it came out in the fall of 2022. I've got a free video right here that shows you all those new features and really dives pretty pretty deep into how to use them, so that would be a great place to go next.